Hello everyone, Pat Smage here. I hope you guys are staying healthy and happy during these crazy times. But most importantly, I hope you're still able to get some riding in, even if it's just in your backyard. Oliver and Elliot have been doing a great job with the tutorial videos so far, but they asked me to come in to try to teach you guys how to backwards nose wheelie. Before you even attempt these, you should be very comfortable doing normal stoppies and rolling nose wheelies. Being able to roll backwards will help out as well. I'm riding the Offset 20 today because it's the easiest to do these on. Its steeper head angle makes it so you don't have to get that rear tire up quite as high, and the lighter weight and smaller size makes it easier to get that rear tire up as high as you need it. I'm going to use this ramp here because it's what I have in the backyard, and it's also not too steep or too mellow. If it's too flat, it's very difficult to get the front tire to start to roll back, and if it's too steep, it's very difficult to get the rear tire up high enough where the front tire will want to roll back. A little bit of transition can help because it develops some speed for you. So maybe try to find a grass bank or something like that, but you have to work with what you got. One of the most difficult things about this move is that you have to think backwards from everything you know during a normal nose wheelie. In a normal nose wheelie, if you start to go too far over the bars, you let the front brake off to bring the rear tire down. If it's not coming up enough, you get on the front brake more to bring the rear tire up. In a backwards nose wheelie, it's completely backwards. So if you're rolling back and you start to go over the bars, you actually want to grab the front brake to bring the rear tire down. If it's not coming up high enough, then you want to let the front brake go and hope that it starts to roll enough to stay on the front tire and continue rolling back. That can be very difficult to wrap your head around because you're thinking completely backwards from everything you've been taught, and it takes a lot of time to get comfortable with it, but at a certain point it just becomes second nature. If you are having a hard time getting the rear tire up high enough, you can use the transition at the base of the ramp to try to propel you a little bit higher. To do that, you want to come in with a little bit of throttle and wait till the rear tire hits that transition and the suspension compresses. That's when you let off and get on the front brake, jump up and forward with your body like a normal nose wheelie, and hopefully get it up high enough where you can start rolling it backwards. Once you can get it up high enough to where it feels like you're going to go over the bars, or maybe you already have, you have to find that point just before you go over, and that's your balance point. That's where you're trying to stay, and that's when you let off the front brake a little bit, and at first just try to roll it an inch or two. Just get that feeling, grab the front brake, and bring the rear tire back down. You want to work little by little and build up to it. Don't expect to roll 5 feet in the first try. Just build up until you have that confidence and control, and work little by little, go further and further. When you start to roll out a little bit further, you want to use less and less front brake. The less front brake you use, the further you'll be able to travel. So you just want to be able to drag it and use it just enough to keep that balance point, and you're not really leaning forward and back. You're putting pressure into the handlebars and kind of down towards your feet to try to get the front tire to get pushed backwards, but the balance is actually done through your front brake. So you're just feathering it on and off to try to keep the rear tire up exactly where you want it to keep it rolling all the way to the bottom. While forwards and backwards balance is mostly done through your front brake, side to side is mostly done through your arms and your hands. You can't really do much with your legs in this situation. You do want to grip with your ankles pretty tight to try to keep the bike underneath you and between your legs. You also want to engage your core almost like you're doing a sit-up. That seems to really help keep the bike centered, because if it starts to fade left or right, it's very hard to bring it back. If you do need to bring it back, you can push harder on one side of the grip and pull on the other while pulling your hips in the other direction and working the bike back to center. But once it starts to go, sometimes that's all there is to it and you can't bring it back. So the more you can stay stable, the more engaged your core is, the better off you'll be. You also want to bend your elbows and your knees so you can move in either direction if you need to. You can also turn the handlebars slightly side to side to try to get the bike back underneath you. This can be tricky because it's easy to tuck the front wheel and it's a good way to crash, but if you're strong enough and you hold on tight enough with your arms, you should be able to bring it back to center and keep rolling back. If you want to be a little more consistent with bringing the rear tire up to where it needs to be to get the front tire to roll back, you can actually rely less on the front brake and your speed and use more of your body to make it get to that point. So instead of just coming in and relying only on speed and front brake power, try to get it a little bit less than it needs to be, and then come the rest of the way with your arms and your hands by pushing down, pushing the handlebars forward and pushing the grips down to try to get the rest of that rotation, and you can let off right when you know it's starting to roll, and that'll be a lot more consistent than just relying on the brake and your speed. This is a very difficult thing to do and a very difficult thing to teach. I don't expect you guys to go out and be able to do it right away after this video. It took me hours and hours, hundreds or probably thousands of tries just on a bicycle to try to get it dialed in. I would suggest to start on a bicycle if you can. It's a little bit easier to get the rear tire up, and it's a little bit less weight if you do crash, but the technique is the same. It can be done on just about any bike, definitely any of the Offsets. It's just about finding that balance point and trying to keep it there. So if you do go out and put the time in, you can win something, because Offset has a little challenge going on. If you guys submit your best backwards nose wheelie, we don't expect a 5-foot run out. We don't expect perfection, just want to see what you guys can do. So even if you get an inch, submit it. Maybe it's the best one and you'll win a prize.